Call the regular April meeting of the Ellsworth City Council to order Monday, April 16th, 2018. A beautiful spring evening. Item 2, the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, Rules of Order. We operate the meetings under Robert's Rules of Orders and any other rule that we made at the meeting in November 2017. Item 4, adoption of the Ellsworth City Council minutes from the following meetings, March 19th, 2018, the regular meeting.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. Item 5, City Manager's Report. Manager Cole.
Yes, on Saturday, May 5th, the annual Card Brook cleanup will occur. Those out in the public who would like to volunteer to help can do so by calling 669-6615 or by emailing Steve Fuller here at City Hall, sfuller@ellsworthmaine.gov. Also, that same day on May 5th, that afternoon, stay in Ellsworth for the Union River Festival, which is scheduled for May 5th from noon to 4 p.m. There will be live music, free smoked fish, fly fishing demos, food, and opportunities to paddle the Union River. And that's sponsored by a number of local organizations, and get out and enjoy your harbor park. Also, just FYI, Knowlton Park, the Comfort Station at Knowlton Park is scheduled to open on May 14th. And will be open through October 9th of 2018. The splash pad will open 2 weeks later on May 26th, as well as the changing rooms to coincide with that. Also would mention that construction or reconstruction of the parking lot off Main and Water Streets is scheduled to begin next week. We've been in regular communication with the businesses in that vicinity, and we'll be continuing to communicate via Facebook, through the newspapers, media, and the website. Our intention is to get the parking lot reconstructed prior to the summer season. Basically, get in, get out, stay out. And this is a project, as the council knows, is way overdue, and we want to get it done and get it done right. And I'm happy to say that when working with Dugas Construction, the contractor, and they should be ready to go beginning of next week. Lastly, budget workshops start next Monday evening at 6 p.m. and will run for 5 consecutive weeks on Monday nights at the same time, culminating with a final budget overview on June 4th and council review and approval at its regular June council meeting. So that's what I have tonight.
Thank you, sir. Item 6, committee reports. We set aside this time for any councilors to bring back information to the council of any committee meetings they've been to in the past 30 days or so. Anyone?
Sure.
Councilor Moore.
I attended the Harbor Commission meeting last Wednesday. Pleased to report that they're actively working on creating the budget. Looking forward to seeing that. For the first time, I believe, there was actually some vandalism that took place in the porta potty. It may have been that somebody was trying to live there and started a fire or something. Probably many of you are aware that there's been a pretty serious bunch of things go wrong thanks to the weather over the winter and the ice. And one of the possible solutions that have been talked about is using something called ice eaters, which is a mechanical device that can be put in the water to stir the water up and bring water from the lower depths up to the near the surface. And it has a track record of doing a pretty good job of keeping certain places ice-free. So it'd be interesting to see how that pans out. There was also a discussion on proposed revisions to the harbor ordinance, which will be discussed later on this evening, which seem to be very good. It's about that time, but anybody who's going to have a slip or a mooring is going to start thinking about sending some money in. And again, that's going to be discussed a little bit later. That's it.
Thank you. Councilor Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Rec Commission met on April 4th for our normal business meeting. We had a pretty nice presentation by Seacoast United Maine North Soccer Group. They go around the state putting on 4-day clinics for our youth. We've tentatively are working with them to get a soccer camp here in Ellsworth. I believe it's August 13 through 16 is the date that they have available for us. For multiple ages, multiple possibilities. It's not free, they charge for it. And we're trying to work out the agreement to bring to council for approval. But just to let you know that that's another offering that for our youth in the middle of August. We're working on the Maya Field opening date and the roles and the responsibilities for the city and the Little League due to the cancellation of the YMCA doing Little League. They used to take care of our bathrooms in the fields. So we're working on that, try to get an agreement with the Little League, who will be here on May 7th to do their budget presentation because they missed the Recreation Commission budget meeting where they usually do that. So since they're a new entity, we've asked them to come make the presentation here. So in case you have any questions. The upper basketball court was opened Saturday for play. I went up and put the pole padding on. They had vandalism, had broken the lock into the upper court. So I couldn't secure the basketball court, so I went and got the padding, put it on, so now it's ready and safe for play. The low one's gonna remain locked unless they break it, until we get the sound curtains and the pole padding up down there. As of this morning, the ice rink is disassembled and piled. The liners are rolled up. Incredible thank you to the highway staff. They sent me 7 guys this morning at 7 o'clock, and we worked for about 45 minutes, and they're rolled up, so tonight when we get that 50 mile an hour wind, that those ice skating liners aren't wrapped around City Hall and the church, because they do fly. Hopefully, we'll get all the sideboards and everything put away in the building and turn the property over to Mickey Sumter for prep for the springtime, as that's her job. The Little League, as I said, will be here. I've been in contact with them by email. They have a request, and we're working through issues and responsibilities. So that's the Rec Commission report.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, moving on. Citizen comments set aside this time for anyone from the public who would like to make comment on anything. that is not on the agenda. If you have anything to say, please come up to the podium, state your name, and give us your viewpoint.
Good evening. My name is Cara Romano. I'm here representing tonight for the Green Plan Steering Committee, Heart of Ellsworth. I'm the executive director of, and we're one of the 15 volunteers that sit on the Citizen Initiative Ellsworth Green Plan. Currently, to date, there are 12 subcommittees that are dedicated to creating events and focused on raising awareness of the environmental issues that are important in our city. I think ahead of time you folks maybe received the report, the committee report out. Okay, excellent, you have it. Notable contributions this month. Gary Fortier has been very active on the newly constituted Waste Management Energy Committee that's formed as of the beginning of 2018. We are also very thankful for the city taking a leadership role in the weatherization program. Also, the city of Ellsworth has contracted the organic lawn care company that's caring for the land in and around City Hall. We're also very encouraged by the city of Ellsworth intervening on the process of the dam relicensing and the amount of new crosswalks this year that will be painted and erected here in the urban core. Just a couple of events. I'm just going to highlight very quickly the first four. On April 16th, which is this evening, unfortunately, the treeing of Ellsworth, that's at the the Moore Community Center. On April 18th, which is this Wednesday, Heart of Ellsworth will be hosting community conversations about ticks. That's at Wednesday at 5:30 at Flexa Cafe. On May 5th, the Union River Festival that David Cole, city manager, just highlighted. I won't go over that again, but there will be some information on Facebook about that. May 19th, there's a walk and roll day that's been initiated by the Walkability and Bikeability Committee. That's going to be held at the public library. And on May 23rd, there's a community conversations about the Union River then and now, which Todd Little-Seabolt will be speaking about the history of the river, and the now Adam Knowlton from the Harbor Commissioner will be speaking on that. And again, that will be at 5:30 at Flexa Cafe on May 23rd. So the steering committee just wants to thank all of the folks here at City Council and all of the folks here in City Hall for supporting the Green Plan Steering Committee, and we look forward to any questions and comments and any further direction from the city that they're looking for us to explore.
I actually have a question.
Please.
Cara, on your report, it lists notable contributions, and this indicates that there are contributions by the Green Steering Committee.
These are actually notable contributions mostly by the city of Ellsworth and City Council. So these are initiatives that we're grateful for the support from the city for. So these aren't, maybe I should have formulated it a little bit differently. We're trying to sort of, as a committee, work to standardize these, so every month when you receive them, that they're in a formulaic way that you're able to just sort of peruse them and to look. But we're trying to sort of frame us working with the city and notable contributions that have been made on the behalf of making Ellsworth a more green and more environmentally green model city.
Thank you.
No, I didn't give them money.
Councilors, any other questions? Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Item 9, the consent agenda. Consent agenda is routine business that we put all under one motion.
I take it we're not doing Steve Joyles?
Did I miss one? I'm sorry. Item 8, presentation
I
of awards.
didn't see him
Steve
here,
is
but-
not here.
I don't believe he's here tonight.
I looked earlier, I didn't see him. I look now, I still don't see him. Whether it,
You want to announce it, so.
whether his award will be given afterwards or next month. It was for 5 years of, or it is for 5 years of service as the city's facilities manager. Now, item 9, the consent agenda. routine business that we put all under one motion. Councilors are, after they're read, they're free to pull any one of them out if they so choose. But the items tonight are Council Order Number 041801, request of the city clerk for appointment of wardens and ward clerks for the 4 voting districts within the city of Ellsworth for the June 12, 2018 City of Ellsworth school budget validation, municipal referendum election, and state primary election. Council Order Number 041802, request of the city clerk for approval on setting the polling places opening time as 8 a.m. for the June 12, 2018 City of Ellsworth school budget validation, municipal referendum election, and state primary election. Council Order Number 041803, request of the city clerk for appointment of Democrat election clerks with terms to expire as of April 30th, 2020. Complete list available at the City Clerk's Department. Council Order Number 041804, request of the City Clerk for appointment of Republican election clerks with terms to expire as of April 30th, 2020. Complete list is also available at that department. Council Order Number 041805, request of the City Clerk for appointment of unenrolled election clerks with terms to expire as of April 30th, 2020. She also has that complete list. Council Order Number 041806, request of the Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector to accept payments on tax-acquired timeshare units per the attached spreadsheet and to authorize the city manager to release said properties through municipal quick claims deeds. Any councilors like to have any of these items pulled to discuss individually? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move acceptance and approval of all the issues on the tonight's consent agenda, including items 9 through 14 inclusive.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries. New business. Item 15, public hearing and action on the issuances of business licenses. Madam Clerk, before we go into these, is everything all set on all of these? No issues, no runs, no drips, no errors. First item, Driftwood LLC, doing business as Chummies, 59 Franklin Street, Unit 2B, for renewal of a city Class B license, amusement, liquor, and victualler, and renewal of a state Class X, Class A, lounge, malt, spiritus, and vinous liquor license. Councilors, any questions? Seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Any questions? Seeing none there either, I'll close the hearing. Councilors, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move approval of the request of Chummies for relicensing.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Second item, Ellsworth Moose Lodge, number 2698, 47 Foster Street, renewal of a city Class B license, amusement, pool tables, liquor, and victualler, and renewal of a state Class V5 club without catering, malt, spiritus, and vinous liquor license. Councilors, any questions? Seeing none, open the public hearing. Any comment or questions? Seeing you guys as curious as the council, I'll close the meeting, the hearing. Meeting's on.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Third item, Taste Jamaica LLC, 282 High Street, for renewal of a city Class C license, liquor and victualler, and renewal of a state Class 4 restaurant malt liquor license. Any questions, councilors? Public hearing is open. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Councilors?
Mr. Chair, move to approve Taste Jamaica renewal license.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Next item, Primavera Restaurant, 186 High Street, for renewal of a city Class C license, victualler and liquor, and renewal of a state restaurant Class 1, 2, 3, and 4 malt, spiritus, and vinous liquor license. Questions, council? Seeing none, public hearing is open. Any comments or questions? Talkative bunch. Public hearing is closed. Council? Is there a motion?
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. And the Eagles Lodge, 278 High Street,
Asset management.
sorry.
Sorry.
Next item, Asset Management Incorporated, doing business as Riverside Cafe, 151 Main Street, for renewal of a city Class C license, victualler and liquor, and renewal of a state restaurant Class 1, 2, 3, and 4 malt, spiritus, and vinous liquor license. Any questions, councilors? Public hearing is open. It's now closed. Councilors, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, move to approve Asset Management Incorporated renewal license.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. And lastly, the Eagles Lodge, Inc., 278 High Street, for renewal of a city lodging license. Councilors, any questions? Public hearing is open and closed as quickly.
Move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Item 16, Council Order Number 041807, request of the Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector to accept payment on land only located at Poors Way, map number 032, lot 009, 000, and to authorize the city manager to release said property through a municipal quitclaim deed.
Good evening, Kelly Herron, tax collector. The city of Ellsworth foreclosed on a property located on Poors Way in 2016. The prior property owner contacted me explaining he did not realize the property had been foreclosed on and was interested in buying it back. The property is land only. The prior owner is prepared to pay off all outstanding debt owed to the city. I do not feel this land is beneficial to the city due to setbacks, and access to the property is on a private way.
Councilors, questions?
Mr. Chairman, I used to walk this land quite a bit, hunting as a kid, and I think our code enforcement officer is rather generous to say there's 8 acres that could be developed. It's a bog. It's all wetland, as she says, hooked to a private way. So I'd have to agree with Ms. Herrick's suggestion that we get rid of it and get it back on the tax rolls for the benefit of the city, because right now it's not doing anything.
I was out there a few years ago, and yeah, I wanted boots.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I had them. Manager Cole.
Also, make note that when a city forecloses on property, it doesn't necessarily make it marketable and merchantable. In another similar situation where the city had foreclosed on a private property, in order to market that property, we would have had to clear the title through court action, which can be expensive and time-consuming. So I concur with Tax Collector Herrick that if we can get it back on the tax rolls and be made whole on the project, that's probably in our best interests.
Anyone else?
Just one last pot shot here.
Yes.
The previous owner bought it in, and this is for John Phillips. Previous owner bought it in 2008, paid $9,000 for it. We got it assessed at $29,300. I'm just,
No other questions? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the request of the tax collector deputy treasurer to accept payment on land only located at Fours Way, map 032, lot 009000000, and to authorize the city manager to release said property through municipal quitclaim deed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any questions? Any further questions? All those in favor? Unanimous, motion carries. Item 17, Council Order Number 041808, request of the Deputy Treasurer Tax Collector to offer for sale by public sale timeshare units located at Acadia Village Resort, acquired by non-payment of real estate taxes. The complete list is in the City Clerk's Department.
At the February 2018 council meeting, I requested to sell 35 timeshares by sealed bid. The sealed bids were due March 23rd. I did not receive any bids on these timeshares. I am requesting to sell these 35 timeshares for a total of $100 each.
Councilors, questions?
No, I'd just like to make a comment.
Absolutely. We're
This
disappointed
whole,
if you didn't.
if any of you who followed along this long story of timeshares, they come to the same conclusion I have, that it's a big merry-go-round. And we basically are doing the work somebody else perhaps should be doing. I'm not sure what the solution to the problem is, but it is kind of irritating.
It takes up a lot of staff time.
Yes.
Councilor Fordio.
Mr. Chairman, this follows the policy that we've followed the last few years of, if we get no bids in public sale, that we put them for a fire sale and get them back on taxable rolls for the benefit of the community. And I think it's appropriate to do that now. That's it.
Anyone else? Seeing none? Is there a motion?
Mr.
Chairman?
Yep, go ahead, ma'am.
Move to approve the request of the tax collector deputy treasurer to set a sale price of $100 for the 35 timeshare units, which are detailed on the attached document, and to write off any remaining tax balance once they are sold, and that's $100 each.
Yes.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Item 18, Council Order Number 041809, request of the Harbor Master to approve prorating harbor fees for the upcoming boating season. Good evening, Mr. Wilson.
Good evening, Council. Adam, Harbor Master.
What's your last name?
Wilson. This
Hutton
is,
Knowlton.
the first part is to prepare for the upcoming season. We thought we were gonna open late, we may not now, but in case Proc is delayed, we'd have all of the Ts crossed and the Is dotted.
Mr. Chairman, we've talked about this at length in the Finance Committee meeting, and I think this is an appropriate plan until we know nature of the beast until we get harbor ready to open. Because if they come up here by the end of the month, we still got a couple weeks to get stuff in
Very well.
and get stuff, so I think doing this proactively instead of trying to get something done emergency reactively, I think it's an appropriate presentation by the harbor master.
A just-in-case type.
Well, just for the record, should I explain what it calls for?
Go ahead.
That, as the harbor master mentioned, that there's a possibility that the harbor really won't be ready for use in worst-case scenario for a month or two, beyond the normal opening. So his plan is to require partial payment of 50% of what people would have to pay for their moorings and slip fees. And when the harbor is finally opened, they would pay whatever was due prorated over a period of time, so as not to be charging them for a time when the harbor is not available. So I agree with the move.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the request of the harbor master to prorate the Chapter 3A harbor fee schedule for the 2018 boating season.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion? Yes,
Should
sir.
I say, should I have included it in case it's needed, or is that a given?
That's a given.
It's a given.
Okay.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous? Item 19, public hearing and action on amendments to the Ellsworth Code of Ordinances, Chapter 3 Harbor Ordinance.
What this one's about is going through our ordinance at length lately. One of the things that's really come to light is to follow it to the T, a dock owner could pay up to 2 mooring fees, which could be $300 a season, whereas they're not taking up the room a boat would take up, and they're pretty close to the shore. What we want to do is change the wording as it's written, and keep it consistent and fair for everybody. Set a flat fee of $25 a season, and have inspections every other year. The inspections are really needed where the river is so corrosive. Questions?
Councilors?
So could you just explain in terms of if the city didn't do the inspection, what would happen in the consequence, so that everybody is well aware of what that looks like?
Where the freshwater and saltwater meet, it's a really high corrosive area. I'm not a scientist, can't tell you why, but it does happen. And if it's not inspected, the dock, like on a night like tonight, where the wind's blowing 25, 30 miles an hour, that dock could blow up the river and hit somebody's boat. And we're looking to prevent this by looking at it, just like we do our moorings every other year.
Councilor Moore?
I think that a $25 fee is an appropriate fee, given what we're trying to achieve. The city is, the harbor master in particular, is kind of the steward of the river, and I think it's important to know where these docks are, who's responsible for them, and so forth. And so therefore, I strongly support this request.
Adam, and this will pay the cost of you going to each and every one of them to physically inspect them, correct?
Absolutely not. No, it helps.
It was
You
a
know,
wish
but-
on my part.
I'm sorry, but the harbor is there more of a service to the community. It's not a moneymaker. It's kind of Well, we don't lose money every year, but we don't make any, that's for sure. And it just help offset some of the costs.
Okay. Counselor
Just
Fortier.
a piece of information, I asked Adam the question today. They still have to pay, the owner still has to pay for someone to raise the mooring block
Yes.
for inspection and put it back in. So there is a little bit more cost to the customer. All Adam's gonna do, unless the guy that's raising them is certified and you believe him, Adam's gonna go down in the boat while they do it, check it all over. Yep, it's good. And take the boat ride home. So there's really no cost to the city,
Right. No.
other than his time to get down the river and back, which he ought to be doing more often anyway. Check on, take a counsel over them.
Three of our docks that are there currently right now mud out at low tide. So they would be covered, they wouldn't have to pay anybody, I could go down at low tide with the boots on that you were talking about earlier. Hopefully I can use yours. And, look the chains over them.
Okay. Counselor Beetham.
Everybody thinks our harbor is just a very small area down where the docks are. Would you explain the inner and outer harbors and how far they go, please?
The inner harbor goes all the way up to the dam, where it's tidal, and we actually have control over that area. The outer harbor actually goes to the Trenton Town line, over 3.5 miles away from the main dock. There's a lot of shorefront property in there, and eventually, rather than being reactive, we're trying to be proactive because there's gonna be more docks come through there.
And it's part of the Atlantic Ocean too,
It
correct?
certainly is.
Any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Excuse me, public hearing, it's an ordinance change.
I'm sorry.
Yep, no, that's what we're here for.
Thank you. I'll open the public hearing. If there are questions or comments about this issue that you'd like to have us know. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing.
Well, move to approve the request of the Harbor Master to amend Ellsworth Code of Ordinances, Chapter 3, Harbor Ordinance as presented this evening, and include a $25 float mooring application fee to Chapter 3A, Harbor Fee Schedule.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Item 20. First two words, Counselor Fortier, public hearing. I'll try to remember that this time. Item 20, public hearing in
Highlight 'em.
action on Council Order Number 041810. Order amending Council Order Number 081706 to reallocate unspent band proceeds to Harbor Park Marina repairs.
Well, it all seems to be about the harbor tonight. Previously, the harbor master was referring to the damage at the park, to the marina back in January from astronomical high tides, from ice damage, wind, storms. As the council knows, you approved or authorized the manager to enter into a contract with Park Marine back at your February meeting. And at the time, I suggested that that be funded out of the reallocation of bond anticipation note proceeds. So I'm here tonight to follow through on that suggestion. Jim Safian, our bond legal counsel, has prepared an amendment to the original bond language. You authorized bonding back in August of 2017. So to reallocate funds, you need to amend that original order and including the funding for PROC engineering, and also to allow for any unforeseen things that may occur. If you're gonna bring PROC Marine up from Rockland, and at a mobilization cost of $23,000, you could have some other things come about. So I'm suggesting that you reallocate and appropriate up to $100,000 of unspent band proceeds to fund these harbor repairs as the city manager may deem necessary and appropriate. You have a suggested motion, and again, this follows through on previous actions from the council. We're hopeful to have PROC up by the end of April, and I think we're looking at somewhere a week's work, hopefully. So one, we want to get this resolved, and certainly we want to get the park back in operating shape, hopefully before it opens in mid-May.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Comments or questions, council? Councilor Fortier.
2 points. We don't know the total amount yet, but our insurance has agreed to cover some of the actual costs of the ice damage, if I remember the conversation right, minus our deductible.
Well,
Or did that fall through?
that fell through.
Okay,
I-
okay. No,
No, but in good faith, the MMA was, they sent someone up. They initially had apparently misread the policy, all in good faith.
Okay.
But we were hopeful, but it's force majeure, it's an act of nature. And usually you're on the losing side of those things for insurance purposes, not a big surprise.
and my second point is I have full trust in your decision-making on appropriating money. But in the next to the last, be it further ordered, in such amount as the city manager shall determine after consult with the finance committee. I'm not
Absolutely.
requiring that it be in there, because the bond council hasn't seen that, but I
Yeah.
know you'd do that anyway, but I
Right.
had to say it in public.
Yep.
Anyone else? This is the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak on this issue to us and let us know, please, by all means. Seeing no one taking advantage of that generous offer, I'll close the hearing. Councilors.
Mr. Chairman, proposed that we authorize the reallocation of up to $100,000 of unspent bond anticipation note proceeds to finance repairs at the Harbor Park Marina and amend Council Order 081706 per attached written order 041810, the amendment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Motion carries. Item 21,
Move to table, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Move to table.
Caught me off guard on that one.
Well, I've been told by people in the know that it should be moved to postpone action on it, not table it, but
All those in favor? Unanimous.
That was easy.
Item 22, Council Order Number 041812, request of the wastewater superintendent for approval to expend funds in the estimated amount of $39,000 to hire Woodard and Curran and purchase necessary software and hardware to complete the SCADA upgrade project.
Good evening, my name is Mike Harris, wastewater superintendent for the city of Ellsworth. This particular motion that I'm asking you to consider involves the treatment plant. The SCADA is referring to the computer system that we have at the plant that monitors all of our equipment and sends alarms to me and people that are on call, and it monitors our pump stations. It was put in when the plant was built in 2012, the software, and in its current configuration is behind the times. It's not as secure as we would like it to be, and it's not as efficient as we'd like it to be. So I am asking that we be able to upgrade that system, and that upgrade would include new software and some new hardware, which would be the servers that the computer software would reside on, and to hire Wood and Kern, who's handled our SCADA since the beginning, to guide us through this and install this upgrade.
Councilors, any questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mike knows his question's coming. We talked today, but I went through his proposal, and Wood and Kern is $9,500, and the equipment's a little under 20, and I asked him where the 39 came from. And your answer is?
So the $20,000 quote is for software licensing for various softwares that we need as part of our SCADA system. The additional money that I don't have a quoting here for yet is the server equipment that's necessary to install. Jason Ingalls is working on that piece of it. He's been in contact with Woodard and Kern to decide what the best equipment is going to be to buy for it. So I asked him to give me a number that he thought was going to be a good number for the equipment piece of it, and that's the $10,000 additional is what he gave me that he thought would be an appropriate number for that equipment.
Thank you.
And that so that brings us to the 39,000 figure?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mike, where did you say this original software was, the software was installed?
2012.
Hardware as well?
Yes.
And is this a normal cycle? Is it 6 years? It's quite a long time
Yeah.
for not having an update. Should it, I mean, what is the recommended update period for this?
So for the software and stuff, the recommended update period is basically as they update to newer systems, we should try and keep up with that. So to give you a brief understanding of what's going on, currently our SCADA system is installed on 6 different computers. So anytime we have to make a change to the SCADA system, it has to be populated on 6 different computers. Also, those computers are all desktop computers, pretty much standard desktop computers. And we've had a couple of small failures with those computers, like the power supply, things like that. So what we're looking at doing is taking our SCADA program, putting it on one server, and then have that server, all the other computers, instead of actually having a license on every computer that we would need to renew, they would just have a client program on each computer that would allow that person, there's 5 licenses, so those people, whoever wants to, would log in with a username and password to the server to access our SCADA. And so instead of having 5 different SCADA programs on 5 different computers, you have one SCADA program on one server that is more secure than the 5 computers, more robust and durable than the 5 computers. And you would be able, as long as you're authorized to have the client on your device, any of my guys could access with their username and login that server to see what's going on at the plant.
Which isn't happening now,
It's not happening now. I get everything.
okay? So, and that sounds ideal, that sounds great. I guess what I'm asking is 6 years typical? Or should this be?
We're probably past where we should have done it.
Okay.
This was actually proposed a little over a year ago. But it never came because the gentleman at Wood and Kern that was spearheading it, who was the head of that SCADA section, left. And there's been a transition to new SCADA people. And so it's kind of been waiting for that process to be handled.
Okay.
Mr. Harris, how much more secure, when we think about cyber attacks and so on, is that single computer system as against what we have now?
Yeah, so right now,
Times more.
one of the things that we need to do that we haven't done with the current computers is we don't want them on the internet. But the only way right now, the desktops, the only desktop that has access is the one in my office remotely. So anytime we need to access the SCADA computer, it comes through the computer in my office. We want to take that off the internet completely and build our own connection into the server that is not part of the internet. It's our own private, virtual private network, it's called. And so that eliminates the possibility of, as you say, a cyber attack where, you know, if somebody were to really want to hack into us and get into that SCADA system, they could turn pump stations off, they could turn equipment on and off at the plant. I mean, it's a fully integrated SCADA system. And so you would, if you hacked into it, you would have full control.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilor Fortier.
Thank you, sir. And I'd suggest that knowing our IT department is on the ball as they are, that they're probably gonna duplicate this on a virtual server off-premise. So if you have a bug, they'll just clean it and reload it.
I believe we have a redundant server.
Yep.
Yes.
So rather than an internet, it's an intranet.
Because
Yes.
we own fiber from the plant
Right.
to our IT.
Theoretically, it's
Yep.
firewalled off.
Councilor Hamilton.
Are there any ongoing costs? Like, is there any additional bandwidth or anything that's needed to
Nope.
support? So,
Pretty good shape,
Nope.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
the. Sorry, I'm pulling it back. Motion
Motion to authorize.
Motion to authorize the Ellsworth City, motion to authorize the expenditure of remaining SRF Clean Water Loan Funds in the estimated amount of $39,000 to hire Woodard and Curran and purchase necessary software and hardware to complete the SCADA upgrade project.
Second.
Motion and a second. No further Councilor Beetham.
It says remaining funds. What is the balance in that fund?
The last number that I had was 96,000.
It's less than 100,000.
So it's not the entire amount, it's just portion of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor? Unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 23, Council Order Number 041813, discussion on the future of emergency medical services, EMS, in Ellsworth. And to begin this, I'm gonna turn to Councilor Fortier, who has been involved with EMS ever since it was horse-drawn. Councilor Fortier.
Not quite, but I remember the days when they sent a hearse to the accident scene, and if you made it, they turned left to the hospital. If you didn't, they turned right to Jordan. So it is quite a while. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to introduce this agenda item and to start the important conversation about the future of emergency medical service in Ellsworth. First and foremost, I need to tell everybody that this discussion in no way diminishes the over 4 decades of service provided by John Partridge and County Ambulance. Whatever the outcome of this long process, the city is indebted to John and his staff. because in the early 1970s, when we were about to lose our only ambulance service, he stepped forward and took it by the reins, and he's been here for almost 44 years. So our hats off to him and his staff who've served us well. We currently, right now, have an opportunity that'll never come in my lifetime again, is to assess what the citizens of Ellsworth wish to have for an ambulance service. So before we get too far down the road of someone else coming, someone else leaving, we thought it was an opportunity. It came to us from a committee of councilors, fire, police, and staff that are currently looking at a future of a public safety building as our forces and our city continue to grow. The question was asked, EMS, where does it fit in our future? Should we design a building with EMS in the plan or not? At that time, Chairman Blanchett saw fit to appoint another small committee working group and to see if we could answer that question. After a number of meetings of this committee with multiple meetings with County Ambulance, Capital Ambulance, Ellsworth Fire, Ellsworth Police, tonight we present the council and the public with our findings, and we'll try to answer questions to the best of our ability. We ask for no decision tonight, but your input and concerns. I appreciate Council Beetham pushing this forward and saying, let's get it on an agenda so that the public knows about it instead of trying to fix this in the dark. I appreciate his push. And at this time, I'll yield the floor to the committee members, and they will do their presentation. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Chief Tupper, good evening.
Good evening. I'm Chief Richard Tupper of the Ellsworth Fire Department. I'd like to start tonight with a question and an answer. I'm not going to expect an answer. I'll have it for you. My question is, should the city of Ellsworth provide emergency medical services to the citizens of Ellsworth? We feel this answer is yes. And I'll speak to how I feel that we should get there, on behalf of the committee. As Councilor Fortier has stated during the discussions about a future public safety building, we've asked ourselves, should we plan for emergency medical services? There's been a tremendous amount of discussion and research into what the future holds in regards to EMS. We discussed a fire-based EMS at one time, and this service would be, if we went that route, would be run under the direction of the Ellsworth Fire Department, and staff, cross-trained to perform both fire and EMS services. We discussed the possibility of partnering with an EMS provider. We have met with County Ambulance and Capital Ambulance, as Councilor Fortier has mentioned, to discuss options with each organization and what they could provide. A partnership would provide an important capacity to respond both to fire and EMS emergencies. We would be responding as a cohesive, well-trained team, which in many instances would also include the police department. This partnership could provide additional career staffing badly needed for the fire department. We do know that partnerships have worked with other fire departments around the state. For example, Capital is partnering with both Brew and Levant and expanding their services outward as well. We currently have some staff that are trained in EMS and a couple of different licensure levels. And most of our remaining staff are eager to be trained in EMS as well. And I do say most, there are some exceptions there, and I think in reality there's always some people that are a little bit hesitant. I do believe our citizens have the assumption and the expectation of when they dial 911 because of an emergency that they are experiencing, to have an appropriate response of trained and experienced personnel and equipment to mitigate their incident. I would include fire, police, and EMS combined to fulfill this expectation of theirs. With that said, we look forward to tonight's discussion to hear from our citizens and the council so that we may proceed in a positive direction.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, councilors?
Yeah, I do. Would you be comfortable without any company name? The scenarios we're looking at, the 1, the 2 rigs, just because it could happen with either of the companies in the room.
In discussions that we've had
over EMS, there's been some proposals, discussions of housing ambulances in our fire station, having staff cohabitate with us to be able to respond to calls together as a cohesive team, as I mentioned, with the potential of firefighters working with ambulance providers in that ambulance to provide the service to our citizens. We're looking at several different options as to how that can happen, what the costs are involved and how to mitigate those costs, what possibility of reimbursement might be involved to help offset some of those costs.
Mr. Chair.
Counselor?
So could you also describe, regardless of the options that, or the option that's selected, what the coverage area is? It's greater than Ellsworth, isn't it?
It is. What we're looking at with some of the proposals is most of Hancock County, quite frankly, with some exceptions. There is looking at that from a zone format, so zone 1, zone 2, if you will. Looking at the immediate Ellsworth area and those immediate adjacent towns as a zone 1, and then beyond that as a zone 2. Some of the concerns that if a rig goes beyond zone 1 and our staff, if that was combined with that, went with it, there'd be procedures to call back employees to cover so that we don't run with less staffing here at the station. There's another view from it, from my perspective, that I think we gain beneficially from is that with staff trained to respond in an ambulance, if resources were out of position and another incident came in, we would have other people that would be trained to respond immediately and make sure that an incident is stabilized, and then work on being able to transport from that point on.
Anyone else?
Just one last comment.
Yes, sir.
In case nobody here wants to talk, it's important for the citizens that are watching to get your thoughts to, probably Chief Tupper is the best one. He's got an office with a voice machine in it, answer machine, or email to any of us, so we know what that's the purpose of bringing it out into the sunshine, is to find out what our citizens expect to be covered by the tax bill after their insurance. You know, there is a cost to this, but there are also benefits. So as we go forward, I'd expect the next meeting we have with this body or with the finance committee to start is gonna be getting into the what ifs and building on the information that we get tonight here and people present to us over the next month. So I'd expect this to be on the agenda again next month for further conversation and an update. Thank you.
If I may add, another big benefit to us, if we proceed with this and we have the fortune of adding additional staffing to help augment the EMS services, we also benefit from that on the fire side by having additional staff available to us in the event of a fire emergency. And that's not only the people that would be on duty, but the ability for a callback of additional forces that are part of our staff.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My take on this, 3 times I've heard tonight that the city needs to decide what they're going to do. That may or may not be true. It's just to keep in mind, these are 2 private entities. And the city, like any other private business here in town, is not necessarily involved in their decision-making. Whether it's through their expansion or whatever the decision is of a private business. They're in it to do what they do. So there may or may not be as the term was used, a decision. by the city. There may be no need for one.
Mr. Chairman, I disagree. Choosing to do nothing is a decision. And, you know, so if this council is not interested in doing anything EMS, then our committee work is done. And that's, the next step is gonna be a critical one. And we'd like to know in the next month or so whether you'd like us to go down that path, or whether this council is satisfied with allowing private business to take care of it on their own. That is a decision, and that's why I think the committee has pushed this forward to see where you want us to go.
It could be seen that way, yes,
Yeah.
and that is a decision, but I just wanted that out there.
Yeah, agreed, 100%.
So what you're saying is the private businesses may or may not want to partner with the city? Is that what you're saying? When you're saying that Ellsworth does not have to make a decision? Because I truly see it the way Gary described it. We have to decide whether or not, to determine whether or not they're interested in partnering with us, and to determine whether or not we're interested in partnering with them, and either way, it's a decision to be made.
All what I'm saying is they are two private businesses. We are not going to go in there and tell them
Oh, absolutely.
what to do. That's my point. Anyone else? Councilor Beetham?
Would you tell me who's on the committee? Or you tell everybody who's on the committee?
Absolutely. Chairman Blanchett and myself have sat in on the meetings as members. Fire chief, deputy fire chief, I think 3 of their senior management, captain, and acting lieutenant. Police department has had usually 3 of their senior staff on it, and David Cole has sat in on some of it.
Okay, and the reason I bring this up is because as a committee, is everybody on board with what was put forth tonight?
Yes.
Because what happened is that Richard got up, and this is nothing against Richard, he got up and he says, and it's my opinion, and he gave us what I believe is mostly the fire department's wish. I'm not sure whether the police department is on board with this, because I've heard nothing from the police department.
That's fair.
I'm not sure that Mr. Blanchett is on board with it, as it was described tonight. So, these are certain things that have been brought forth and are possible, but I do believe it's the feeling of the fire department is the moving force behind a lot of this, in the way they'd like to go, because they're gonna be impacted by this more than any other department.
It's true.
So like I said, it's nothing against Richard or anything else, because they have to advocate for what they believe is the best for the city. But I think that it's very important, as Gary has mentioned, that it's very important that the public speak on this one.
We have police representation in the back of the room, if you'd like to hear from them.
Chief of Police Glenn Mosier. To address the issue, I have attended the meetings that have addressed EMS and the future of EMS. I think that our meetings have been kind of all over the place with options and ideas and where we want to go with the future of EMS in the city. I would say that obviously the fire department has kind of taken the lead, because it typically falls as a function of fire in other communities and not so much a function of the police department. Our main concern or involvement is from our experience with EMS services in the community, and ensuring that whatever decision is made, that we improve on those experiences that our officers are having out in the field, and also any potential impact on our dispatch services, because as the police chief, I also am responsible for maintaining and oversight of the dispatch services. And depending on where we go with EMS services, that could have a significant impact on our dispatching. So those were our major focal points and concerns. We've discussed many different options, as Chief Tupper had said, as far as fire taking a lead role in EMS and actually providing EMS services, and then partnering with other companies, bringing private entities into the fold with partnering with the fire department to provide those services. And I think the general consensus is that some partnership may be what's in the best interest of, at least my opinion of where we were headed with the committee, is that a partnership was probably in the best interest of the city and the citizens of the city, so that we could have some say into what the EMS services and what services are provided for our community, as opposed to completely stepping back and allowing the private entities to do what they're going to do, and then sit back and have a lack of service provided for our community. So I think those were all points of similarity, and points that the fire, police, and the councilors were all in agreement on. And exactly how that goes and what that looks like, I think, is really why we're here, to get feedback and to get a better understanding of what the community expects, so then we can go back and maybe narrow our scope and come up with some plans and some specific ideas that we're all, completely in agreement and support of.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions? Manager Cole?
I think the term committee maybe has caused a little bit of confusion, because it sounds formal. And at least in my mind, it's been more of a working group led by the fire department, reaching out to get input from others. But from my recollection, it's not like they've been formal votes or meeting schedules or that type of thing. It's, again, more of a working group. Is that fair, Chief Tupper?
I would agree with that, yes.
Yeah.
Having said that, Chief, do you think that you could say that there's a core consensus?
I would absolutely say that. And I put these words together tonight, this morning, to reflect what I've been hearing
Yeah.
from the committee, absolutely.
Good.
Councilor Fortier?
Early on in the process, I was asked what I thought as we went in. And if I could wake up tomorrow morning with a magic wand and make it happen, my wish would be a city-run, city-owned EMS, fire service-based emergency ambulance service under the complete control of the city. End of story. But the city of Ellsworth isn't ready for that. Financially, service-wise, space-wise. So, that's not achievable. And I hate going into a race that I know I don't have a chance to win. So we cranked back and started looking at partnering with one of the two unnamed services. What would it look like? 2 rigs in the station, 1 rig in the station. We provide a driver for each rig. We provide a driver for 1 rig. They provide people for both of them, and we have nothing to do with it. We run an engine in tandem with them on certain emergency calls for assistance. It's run the gamut, and prices go with the run. So, like I said before we have 2 or 3 more working groups, I'll accept that, you're right, it hasn't been a formal committee. We just wanted some input to know that we weren't backing up the tree that we're never gonna get the cat out of. So, thank you.
Thank you. Comments from anyone in the audience? Come on up, state your name if you would, please.
Hi, my name is Corey Lynn Nodden. Some of you actually might know my mom. This past winter, unfortunately, she had a pretty major heart attack. It was a little bit late in the evening, and I got a phone call. And I live out on the Surrey Road, not very far, right up past the hill. And I jumped in my car and I raced down the Bayside Road to my mom's house. When I got there, I knew right away we were in a major crisis. We had a problem. Called for an ambulance, ran to her side, sat and waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited 20 minutes. And I knew that we were in big trouble. So I got on the phone and I called back. And I said, "Where is my ambulance? She's gonna die. She's turning blue, we got problems." And the lady on the other end of the phone said, "I don't know. I don't know where your ambulance is. I don't know what to do," basically is what she told me. And she said, "Do you know how to do anything?" "No, I don't. No, I don't." And I think that Chief Tupper raised a really good point that we as tax-paying citizens think that when we call for an ambulance, one is going to come in a hurry, like immediately. So when she asked me if I knew how to do anything, no, I didn't. So I may not have been in my best behavior, and I may have been hysterical, but my mother was turning blue. I asked her what I was supposed to do, and she said, "I don't know, call the fire department." So I hung up, because she couldn't connect me to my fire department for some reason, and called my fire department. My fire department was at my house in 7 minutes. And they were able to stabilize my mother and get her to a regular color.
Corey,
And
Corey, I need to interrupt here.
yes,
I just want to make sure that this isn't going down the road of bad mouthing
no,
anyone.
no.
or-
I want to get to the point where
Okay, all right. Thank you.
we
Thank you.
need to get to the point in our community, me as a taxpayer, and my mom who did survive, she did do well. I want to get to the point where when I pick up the phone, I want to know that when my fire department came and helped my mom, there was no rig for my mom. So even though they stabilized her, we still had to wait for the ambulance. Apparently the ambulance was on another call. No one knew that, which that happens. There was no way to transport my mom once they got her stabilized. There was no way, even though the fire department, who, by the way, did an amazing job. The crew that showed up to help my mom, fantastic. You guys are fantastic. I don't know if any of you that were there, I can't remember because it was such a terrible, horrible experience, but everyone that showed up from the fire department was so fantastic. The training they must get is superior. It was, thank God they came, honestly. They were so great. But once they had her stabilized, there was no way to transport her, so we still had to wait for a rig to come from the ambulance services. There was no way to get her to the hospital. So there was a shortage of that transport. We still had to wait another, I think it was 35 total more minutes for my mom to get to the hospital.
So, I'm gonna jump in here again.
Mhm.
So, your opinion of Ellsworth going into an ambulance service, or can we get to that view?
Yes. So for me, I'm just concerned that there needs to be more for, when you make a call, I live in Ellsworth, I call the ambulance. I want to know that this town has the ability to make sure that we're not losing, my mother's not an elderly woman. She's basically a healthy person. There was not enough. She lives 3 miles from Maine Shellfish. We're talking, it was over an hour to get her to Maine Coast Memorial Hospital because there wasn't a rig. This is where we are. I mean, that just sounds incredible to me. We're talking 3 miles down the Bayside Road because we couldn't get a rig. That's nuts. We had staff, we had guys, but we couldn't get a rig.
Okay, thank you very much.
So, for me, I just think that would be great. I love that this committee is happening. I love that we've got people that are seeing the problem, seeing the issue, and want to talk about it. So for me, I think this is fantastic, and I love that you're taking a minute to hear me about it.
Thank you.
We're really glad your mom's okay.
Oh, thank you.
Is there anyone else? Councilors? any
Thank you
other
for the
questions or
opportunity, sir.
concerns? Thank you very much. Moving on. Item number 24, Council Order number 041814. Request of Public Works Director to approve a lease on an excavator for a term of up to 6 months at an estimated cost of $5,800 per month.
Good evening, Lisa Cyclich, Public Works Director. The memo you have in front of me, there's been an update. Originally, we thought the cost was gonna be $5,800 a month. It is now actually going to be about $4,200 a month. We are asking to rent.
Come back next month.
We need an excavator. The one we currently have is out of commission due to extensive costly repairs that I think have been deemed not worth looking into. So Bernie went out and got 3 different quotes for renting one, which is where the $5,800 originally came from. That was one of our quotes. But the one from Eagle Rental, like I said, was out of Waterville, was the $4,200 a month. So, sorry I'm blabbing.
Doing great.
That's great. Councilors?
There was a $125 delivery charge in there.
Yep.
My question was, if you have a broke-down machine and it has to go back and a new one delivered, is that still cost you another $2,500, another $125?
I believe if it breaks down, not from our issues, that they will replace it at their expense
cost.
or bring us a new one.
Because there's been, in the last year, there's been a couple of incidents where a broke-down machine has cost us some money, so.
Yeah, we're gonna work on that this year.
Okay.
She just saved us $1,600 a month. Oh, that's a lot of transport.
That's right.
She just made her,
Better.
she just made her salary.
Councilor Beetham, that $1,500 savings could be zipped over into the roads account if you'd like.
You'd have to have a lot more $1,500 cash to get very far.
Add an extra 0.
Councilor?
Spring will eventually come, so with that said, just in terms of, if you could just talk a little bit of the projects that you have,
Yep.
this is gonna be utilized pretty heavily.
Yes, so we're asking to rent it from what I would call the construction season, from May to October. We have quite a lot of ditching that we plan on doing this season, as well as some fairly decent-sized culvert projects, not just driveway culverts, but actual road culverts, as well as some other items that are still in the works that we might be using it for. But yes, the intention is that it will be used daily.
Fully employed.
Pretty much the full time. Yep.
Counselor?
And one of the pet peeves in the past, and I talked to Lisa about this the other day, and she shook her head and says, she promises to do her best to staff this excavator with appropriate trucks so that it doesn't sit there for 45 minutes, load a truck, sit there for 45 minutes, load a truck all day long. So she knows of the problem, and she,
Is amenable to,
yes, she
I will do what I can.
promised she'd do her best.
any further comments or questions?
And I think,
Entertain a motion.
I think at this amount a month, I think we're looking maybe next month, do it again, never own one.
Honestly, I think I would agree.
Yep.
You get a machine that's been maintained. We don't have to worry about the maintenance of it. It's, you figure, I think we talked at 6 years we would get a renting, would be the cost of a brand new one, and within 6 years you're gonna need to potentially replace one. So,
So I think it's a good try.
Lisa had talked to me about this a couple of weeks ago and had given me the number, roughly $6,000 a month. And I winced a little bit, because, it's $36,000, and then when I opened the packet last week and saw 4,200
You did a happy dance.
twice. Yes, sir.
It's over the history of the machines. You get a couple of 3 years of good years out of a machine, and then you start getting some problems with them. And by leasing the machine or renting the machine, you're always gonna have a good machine under you. You don't have to worry about having a machine that's almost wore out and you've got a baby in, or you're not gonna get the work out of it. So I think that what you're gonna get out of renting is going to be a far superior machine over a long period of time, rather than just having a new machine that you use for 2 or 3 years, and then you're dealing with an old machine again.
Manager Cole?
And generally speaking, your biggest expense in a breakdown is not the breakdown itself, it's the interruption of work and workflow. And I will say that when Public Works Director Sekulich was interviewed, we had a discussion with her about this very thing. She had a lot of good ideas about how we can plan out our work and make sure we have the right equipment, the right people, and the right resources in the right place at the right time. A lot of rights there, so she's on it.
Anything further?
The next step, Mr. Cole, may be, we've got an awful lot of gravel pits around here that have fairly large loaders sitting all winter long. We may look at leasing one of those for 4 months to help out, so.
There are a lot of good leasing deals
Yep.
out there in the marketplace right now, right across the board.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the rental agreement with Eagle Rental of Waterville for a 135 class excavator and attachments at a cost of $4,200 a month for a duration of approximately 6 months, to be paid for through the Highway General Fund account.
I would second that.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 25, executive session to discuss labor contracts in accordance with MRSA Title I, Chapter 13, Section 405, Paragraph 6D.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
And you might want to mention, Mark, that we're not coming out of executive session, taking any action.
Now, we're coming out all
coming
right.
out.
I mean, we're coming out to take action.
Oh, that-
We will be coming
We're
out.
coming out for item 26.
Yes.
Yes.
We ain't keep